There have been a number of operators in Arknights that I would consider unfortunate. There are 5 stars with questionable kits or ones that are just incredibly underpowered. There are 6 stars that are consistently overshadowed by operators that came before them, or their niche just isn't used that often. Then there are a category of operators whose unfortunate nature is mostly not through their own fault, but because of the placement of their banner. Dorothy consistently being in between cracked banners, and Stainless being right before Texas Altar. And there are those who are especially unfortunate enough to be in between 2 limited banners. Passenger and Cubi are fairly strong operators by their own right, but there are things that hold them back. There is one operator, however, that does not deserve this at all. That's right, it's Ascalon chilling time, baby. So, the long-awaited Babel event is here to give us the long-awaited lore with Doctor, the Risa, and the Mia, and depression, and misery, and tears, and with the event, of course, comes a new banner, Ascalon, a new ambusher specialist like Mizuki. After a lukewarm reception on CN, she's proved to be a very strong operator after testing, though from what I've seen is still massively underrated by the global player base, and I can think of 2 reasons why. Ascalon, as I have implied, is an incredible operator with all 3 of her skills, definitely worth considering for mastery. I definitely did, that's for damn sure. So if you're on the fence on whether or not you should pull on Ascalon, let this video be my case on selling you on her, while of course showing you the synergies that she has with other operators and comparing her performance with her contemporaries. And of course, give you tips on how to use her and potentially even maximize her and make her shine. Breaking this video down into 2 parts. The first being a general overview of her and what every part of her kit does. The second part of the video being the synergies and such. Are you ready? Let's go. Ascalon. Ooh. Ascalon, like I said, is an ambusher specialist, meaning she's a spikeweed. 0 block, very high attack, long attack interval, and 50% physical and arts dodge. I'll start talking about her second talent first, because it's boring as hell compared to the first one. Penumbral Image simply increases her attack speed by 8. And if there's a high ground tile in the 4 tiles beside her, even more. Yep. Though I have to say, this actually messes up her cycle with her S1, because that skill costs 7 SP, and with Ambusher's 3.5 attack interval, it should make it so that she uses her skill every other attack. But with the increased attack speed, she now activates it every 3rd attack. Questionable design aside, let's move on to her other talent. Ascalon's first talent is an absolutely insane one. Mortal Interrogation lets all of her attack apply a stack of movement speed reduction and poison DOT. She can apply up to 3 stacks on a single enemy, with each stack reducing movement speed by 18% and DOT scaling equal to 10% of Ascalon's attack. Okay, so how long does each stack last? Maybe like 3 seconds like Thorns' DOT? Maybe 5 seconds like Manticore's movement speed reduction? Hell, maybe even 16 seconds like Puzzle's DOT. No. Each stack lasts for a whopping 25 seconds. This means that you would see enemies going at a snail's pace and slowly dying even much after they leave her range. This talent is even further improved in her module. Though unfortunately it doesn't improve her inflicted movement speed reduction, it still slightly improves her DOT and increases the duration of each stack. I would say even with slightly underwhelming talent upgrades, it is still always worth getting mod 1 for the innate movement speed reduction. Moving on to her skills. Skill 1, simply named Pursuit, lets her next attack hit twice, doing increased damage in both instances. Anti-synergy with her talent 2 aside, this is an amazing AFK lane holding skill. Thanks to the fact that it hits twice, once an enemy gets in range, she will instantly inflict 2 stacks of her DOT and movement speed reduction. And never count out the actual damage that she can deal with this skill either. Even though the damage is spread through 2 hits, usually meaning it would have a hard time piercing through high defense, thanks to the high innate attack of ambushers, it lets her even pierce through enemies with very high defense, like that of the red versions of shield guards here. Keep in mind that these guys have 1.5k defense, and even with the buff that the enemy heralds give, she still deals enough damage to kill all of them. But yeah, as I've said, this skill is amazing and should not be slept on. It's quite amazing for dealing with crowds, dealing lots of damage while also quickly applying her talent stacks to slow down incoming waves, giving you more time to deal with them. This skill even made me reevaluate Mizuki's S1 too, since they do similar things and fell in love with both skills. But I need to move on since we still have 2 more skills to go. Her skill 2, named Endowment, is what Ascalon is mostly known for, and for very good reason might I add. The skill more than doubles her attack and reduces the movement speed of all ground enemies in her range by a whopping 60%. Combined with the movement speed reduction from her talent and her module, this will total up to a movement speed reduction of around a staggering 80%, slowing down all enemies to an absolute crawl while also doing very respectable amounts of damage. And since she buffs her attack as much as she does, this will also greatly improve the DOT from her talent. Speaking of her talent, stacking it would also become easier with his skill too, since when any enemy is killed in her range during the skill duration, the killed enemy will explode, inflicting a talent stack to nearby enemies. Though seeming quite gimmicky at first, this basically lets her stack on the talent against crowds of enemies. Now, that's all the skill does, but I've yet to mention what makes this skill so great. I mean, sure, 80% movement speed reduction is great and all, but nothing we haven't seen before. The reason why this skill is as good as it is because of its rotation. The skill lasts for 35 seconds with a 20 SP cost. 20 seconds. 20 seconds is all you need in order to activate the skill again once it ends. Low SP cost is one of the things that instantly makes me interested in operators because of the flexibility that it brings, and a 20-second downtime to a skill that does this much and lasts almost twice as long as it needs to charge is simply incredible. I'll talk about the skill even more in part 2, but I've already spent too long in this section. Moving on. Skill 3 is a very gimmicky one. Descent expands her range, slightly increases her attack, and decreases her attack interval, though the main highlight of the skill and what it's known for is decreasing enemy hit rate in her range, reducing it by 50% to be exact. What's more is that she gains taunt in the skill duration, and if she dodges an attack or an enemy misses, she heals for a little bit of HP. This is probably the skill that I use least on Ascalon actually, but there are a lot of stages where it's very obviously the best choice. Being able to reliably tank range harassment while also being a hella droppable skill provides some great counters to entire sections of a map where other operators with the same range or damage would not be able to live through. Also consider certain enemies that this skill would completely counter. Basically any enemy that is a ranged threat is completely shut down by Ascalon, the sweeper from Il Sercosano here being no exception. Also consider that the reduced hit rate of enemies provides a form of sustain for your other operators as well, albeit a less reliable form of sustain. I believe it should still be mentioned. Other than that, increased attack and attack speed again help with her talent stacks. But for now, I'll move on to part 2. Again, I'll talk about the skill more there, where I show you a case where it shines. Starting off part 2, I'll talk about the synergies that she has. First and foremost, Arturia. One that you might have heard of before, this synergy works in a way where Arturia grants Ascalon her buff on S2, making each poison tick from Ascalon deal necrosis damage. I stupidly used this on a single target for my recording, Patriot in this case, where realistically you would use this against hordes of enemies, essentially acting as a replacement for Arturia's skill 3 as her skill 2 cycle is much faster. Arturia comboing with Ascalon will be able to make any enemy in Ascalon's range activate necrosis fallout at an insanely fast rate. These next 2 synergies are ones of operators that aren't out for global yet, the first one being Underflow, a defender operator coming out with Ulpianus in the event Path of Life. She's the welfare operator of the event. The reason why I bring her up is because of her skill 2's synergy with Ascalon's skill 2. Underflow's S2 providing movement speed reduction to hordes of enemies as well, while also providing almost perfect skill cycling, kinda like how Gavialter's S2 covers for Muinar's S3. The skill covers Ascalon's downtime and Ascalon covers for Underflow's downtime. With this combo, the enemy would move at a snail's pace at all times, undoubtedly making the enemy shake and cry in frustration as they struggle to reach your operators. The last synergy I have for you is not really a synergy. Sorry, I lied. It's more of an operator specifically made to support this entire setup. The Tin Man provides bonus damage to all DOT within the range of his children. Underflow, and of course Ascalon having DOT for themselves, of course. This also boosts the DOT enemies receive from Necrosis Fallout. boosting Arturia's performance as well. Needless to say, this is a great boost to the entire setup's overall performance. Even with just Tin Man support, Ascalon at full talent stacks will deal over 900 arts DOT per second on skill 2. Some comparisons are eventually going to be made with any operator, and Ascalon is of course not immune to this. I'll tackle the easier comparison first with Mostima's S3, which reduces enemy movement speed by 90%. If you have the potentials, it's 99%. Absolutely nothing will progress in Mostima's range during her skill activation. Though only a few percent away from Ascalon's 80%, the difference is very noticeable. Though the obvious downside of Mostima compared to Ascalon is the downtime. Mostima's downtime almost being 80 seconds, with the module that gives her the 99% slow. You can trade this for the other module making Mostima's SP generation faster, but even then, it's nowhere near the cyclability of Ascalon's S2, and you're sacrificing Mostima's monstrous 99% slow with a measly 52%. This is understandable because that other module is focused on slow support, while this one is focused on SP support for casters, also working better with Mostima's S2 in my opinion. The next comparison is also a simple one, since Mizuki is basically just focused on his offensive capabilities. S1 is more damage in a single instance, meaning he's better at piercing defense, while also having split arts damage stronger than Ascalon's DOT, all the while not having the anti-synergy Ascalon has with her talent, making for overall better damage. The same is true for Mizuki's S3, dealing a lot more damage than Ascalon's S3, even having one tile range advantage over her. But he doesn't really provide the support that Ascalon gives with her movement speed reduction. Well, except for Mizuki's S2, which provides bind, but no one really uses that because of one guy. Ethan is the last comparison, and honestly the biggest rival to Ascalon's utility. Why they made this 4-star as overpowered as they did, I have no idea, but here we are. Ethan's S2 is an incredibly strong stall, being able to bind enemies with 100% uptime, if you get lucky enough that is. It also has an identical skill cycle to Ascalon's skill 2, only having 5 seconds more downtime and 5 seconds less uptime. Ascalon's only advantage on Ethan is still being able to provide consistent support off skill, and her being able to do much more damage of course. I suppose it's worth mentioning that since her status is movement speed reduction, that means she can stall out even the very rare enemies that are immune to both sluggish or bind. But honestly, I don't see this as a bad thing at all. I think Ascalon and Ethan work amazingly together, because Ethan also provides perfect skill cycling for Ascalon. With both of their skill 2 equipped, their uptime is more than 100%. When I say just use the both of them, I don't mean it in a Silver Ash Moinar kind of way where they don't really work together at all. Them being able to perfectly cover each other's downtime means that enemies will rarely get to you. Ascalon even providing more than 50% movement speed reduction for Ethan in the cases where he misses his bind. Overall, Ascalon made me realize how much I love Ambracers as a subclass, and made me appreciate all of them even more than I already did, making them one of my favorite subclasses in the game. No surprise there, Spike Rock was my favorite plant in PvZ. Moving on from comparisons to general use, well, you can use Ascalon just about anywhere. The support she provides with her movement speed reduction is incredible, but I feel like it would be a disservice to her if I don't mention her use in the upcoming game mode of IS5. She is absolutely insane there, being able to easily carry through up until at least the floor 3 boss and providing incredible use for any stage. I mean, it would be easier to list down the stages that Ascalon isn't amazing at. In fact, I'll do it right now. Okay, here are the stages that Ascalon isn't at least useful in. And that's it. Okay, fine, there's like one stage. But regardless, from my experience, an Ascalon start in IS5 is an incredibly strong start. I'd even put her in the same tier as people like Reed Alter on IS4 or Degenbersher in general. Even just using her and any operator that can cover her high initial DP cost will be able to smoothly go through any floor 1 emergency and carry through any floor 2 stage. This isn't even mentioning the fact that the ending 1 boss stage has one of the cases where Ascalon's skill 3 completely shuts down the start of the stage, the left side of the stage having a lot of ranged threat that will tear through your defenses after a short while, which Ascalon just completely shuts down. Overall, Ascalon is an incredible unit that has amazing versatility. There have been many points when playing in the global server when I thought, damn, I wish I could bring along Ascalon for this stage. And now I can! Since a lot of people have already decided to skip her long before her banner was even out, I wanted to make this video to maybe make them reconsider. But if this video didn't sell you on pulling for Ascalon, that's okay. It wasn't the point of the video anyway. I wanted to show you how good this operator is, of course, but I have a lot of fun with Ascalon and wanted to share my experience using her, while also showing you where she shines and of course how she works with other operators. But for now, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If I got anything wrong or if I missed anything, please inform me since I'm always looking to be better. Bye bye.